Now the last thing I want to mention quickly is something we call borrowed chords. And basically borrowed chords just means that the chords are borrowed from somewhere else. Now let me show you what I mean. In the key of C, we figured out our 7 chords for that key. Now sometimes you'll play a chord that's a borrowed chord, and here are the 2 types of borrowed chords. Either the chord is borrowed from another key and it has a completely different root, meaning that it's not one of these 7 tones of the C major scale, or whatever scale you're in, or it'll be one of the tones of the scale, but the chord quality will be different. Let me show you what I mean. We know that in the key of C, this E chord in our diatonic harmony is minor, E minor. And here we have an E minor 7. So that's from the key. Now you may hear this. Say I went from C major 7 and I wanted to play an E chord and I wanted to get to A minor 7. You'll hear this in music. Here's one example of a borrowed chord. Instead of playing E minor, which I could play E minor and then go to A minor 7, sometimes you'll hear this. Now, I did play an E chord. Here's the E chord. And here's the bass. But if you notice, this doesn't look like an E minor chord at all. That's because it's not. It's borrowed actually from another key. Now I'm not going to explain what that key is. I just want you to see the possibilities. As we get into breaking down songs, I'll actually explain to you where these chords are from. But I just want you to see the possibilities. C chord, an E chord that's borrowed to an A minor chord. That's one example. The other example is if we use a totally different root. We borrow a chord that has a totally different root from our C major scale. So here's an example of that. Say I wanted to play a C to an E minor, and then I wanted to play a D minor to a G7 and C major 7. All those chords are in that scale. But I could actually add an E flat major 7 chord, which is not in that key. C major doesn't have an E flat in it, but I can actually add that in there as a borrowed chord. Let me show you what I mean. C major, E minor, E flat major, D minor, G7, C major 7. Now for the sake of this video, I'm keeping these chords in root position just so you can see them. I would usually invert them and get better colors. But we had C, E minor, D minor, G7, C major 7. Now I'm going to use a borrowed chord and add that E flat major 7 in there. C major, E minor, E flat major 7, D minor 7, G7, C major 7. Let me put that in context to a rhythm. Now I'll add the borrowed chord. So as you see, I added the E flat major 7 in there, and it just gave it a different color. But as you know, it wasn't from the C major scale because there's no E flat. So the 2 types of borrowed chords are either a note that's within the scale, but it just has a different quality, like this E chord, or a chord that's outside of the scale altogether as far as the root, like this E flat major 7 chord. The only thing I want you to get from this is just knowing the possibilities. As I said, as we get into the breakdown of songs, we'll explain further because to understand this concept, it's really easier to understand as you apply it to a song.